There are so many interesting, horrifying, or downright weird things in this big world of ours.
Each week, we'll bring you a new true crime story that has little to no coverage in English.
Let us do the translations, so you don't have to.
Hello.
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 Or was that the first one now?
Nope. Yay. Petra's mic might sound a bit different today because she doesn't have her normal
because
one.
It's different.
Yeah, it's just temporary. Yes. It's different than the normal one that we've been using. So apologies for that.
Maybe it's going to be a little bit nostalgic.
Yeah.
You can be nostalgic about our first episodes. Yeah. I can play a part of like a famous guest that you have invited to the podcast, and
that's true.
They're like calling me like in the radio programs, like, oh, hello.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I do listen to even like actual professional podcasts when sometimes there's a guest and they don't actually sound very good. So let's pretend that Petra is the famous guest.
Yeah.
Today.
Yes, indeed. Okay.
But so it's kind of like the first 8 episodes when you didn't have your mic, but the mic is coming back, so it's fine.
Yes, it's not lost. It's just in the wrong place.
Okay. Sorry, I had to raise my mic up with my desk.
It's like your screen is moving. Yes. I wanted to. So I think we need to give some updates. One is about the pickle popsicles.
Yeah. Okay, So are we now reviewing the pickle popsicles?
Yes.
Popsicles. Whatever.
Pickle sickles.
Ice lolly. A pickle ice lolly. Yeah, okay, anyway. Yeah.
Okay, who starts?
Well, we can all say, on the count of 3,
we have orders.
We can say whether it was good or bad on the count of 3. So 1, 2,
after 3 or on 3?
So 1, 2, 3, then say.
Good.
Oh. Good.
It was bad already.
I think it was pretty good.
I thought it was good. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good.
Did we have the same one? Same brand?
I think, if it was the one that you sent a picture of, a photo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So my problem was that, like, it was good if you
chewed it.
Chew it,
yeah. If you chewed it, it was good. But if you sucked it, it was just so much of etikka. What is etikka? Vinegar. Yeah. It was like the vinegar just like overwhelmed me.
Was it vinegary?
I didn't
think
it
was too vinegary.
Yeah, I thought it was more garlicky, dilly than anything.
But it was a
now
bit.
I start to wonder if there are different like flavor options of this same brand. Because mine wasn't garlicky at all.
This definitely, maybe the dill was the most prominent flavor to me.
Yeah.
I would say it's not my favorite type of pickle juice. Like there are other types of
better
juice that I like better.
Yeah. Like Euro
yeast. Like the lacto-fermented tastes way better than just this like typical dill pickle. Kind of, it was more of a kosher dill pickle flavor, or like something you'd get in a New York, deli shop or something like that. But so I think the lacto-fermented is the way to go. But I guess that would be also quite difficult to make in a popsicle form. I'm not sure, but I thought it was pretty okay. Like, because like me and Viktória split one, so maybe that also like in a smaller dose it was better.
Yeah, true.
But
I actually couldn't eat more than half, so I still have the half in my
I still have one in my freezer.
Yeah. But half was a good portion. I liked it. Overall, I think it was pretty good, like kind of refreshing, pretty nice flavor.
I would say 7 out of 10
still. Yeah, that sounds like what my rating would be too.
3 out of 10.
Oh, really? You hated it so much?
Yeah. and I'm really like, I'm sad about it because I wanted to like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I had very high expectations.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try like do my own popsicle out of the better the
Euroist juice.
You should get like a margarita margarita maker, and you can make like a pickle margarita, and then you could add like some tequila into it. Yeah.
What's a margarita maker?
You basically, it's like a machine, that kind of, like those slushy machines that you see in, I don't know. In some, like,
yeah. I remember like 20 years ago, if you know Iguana, the restaurant.
Yes. Yeah.
They had those, like you could get this like huge bowl of margarita and they just slushed it out of the machines.
Yeah. So basically it creates a slushy. So if you have like the juice, it kind of keeps it turning. So the crystals stay small, but like also kind of nice. And then it just turns. Or I guess you could use a ice cream maker possibly too. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, just a thought that you can make like a pickle margarita. Spicy pickle margarita. That would be good.
Yeah, you see sometimes in social media these like all kind of pickle recipes. I wonder why the algorithm recommends those to me.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a mystery. I don't think we'll ever solve it.
But imagine like a summer party and then you have this like slushy maker just with pickle juice. So pickle juice slushies.
Okay, can we have, maybe not this year, but some summer we need to have a summer party with this.
Yes. I would love that. Because otherwise most slushies are kind of lame. In my opinion, because they're always too sweet. Surprising that's my my assessment. But they are mostly like, well, just like after 5 sips, it's just too much. But this would be amazing.
Well, there's a slushy maker
with some
from
vodka.
Gigante, a ninja slushy. Yeah, Hile Juomakone. Okay, which would be 153 euros in Gigante. So
that's okay.
I'm think we need to start.
Use it once in 5 years.
Or we could get a double
Patreon.
one. There's a double one, and then it's 927. But you can have 2 flavors. You could have a pickle one, and then just like something that's a bit like sweet but not too sweet. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
I think we can start with the 100 something one.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to join our Patreon, that's collecting, will be, if we ever make one, would be collecting money for the pickle juice ice machine.
Yes. And then we could, so we could have different drinks from different pickle juices, different types, and then we can review them. And there could be a Patreon special for people that we review the pickle juice slushies from different types of pickle juice.
Or we should just make slushies of random shit and then review those. Just random stuff. People can say, like, you should make a slushie out of this. Does it slush? We could have a segment, Does it slush? But yeah, so it says that it changes the liquid to ice in about 30 minutes, and there is viisi asetusta, whatever, and so settings, I guess. And then 200, Jesus Christ, 2.5 liter tank or cilia, and then, but it has 1.9 liter maximum filling capacity, in which you can enjoy over 7 drinks. 7 drinks, I guess, but in 30 minutes, I guess, if you'd like.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, and the way that you drink, it would take like an hour or 2 hours for you to drink a slushie, so then it'd be perfect.
Okay, I know. That's true. I drink very slowly. And I always leave some leftovers from every drink, and then just never finish it.
Yep. I'm always I'm like, this is Victoria's drink. Shake it, just make sure before getting rid of the can. Like
every time. I don't know why. It's not intentional. But I actually finished my coffee today. Look.
Wow.
I can prove it.
Wow.
Wow.
Sometimes it happens.
I usually have to have multiple drinks at a time. And then like I have my non-alcoholic beer and then my water. So like, yeah, multiple drinks.
And you actually drink them?
Yeah, and I do. Like I've drank almost...
Great. Impressive.
Almost 3 liters of water today. And then there's this. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Water's important.
That's
Stay
great.
hydrated.
It is. I should try better.
Yeah. No, it's I don't know. Like it's difficult to drink water. Like I don't know. Like there's some.
I think drinking water is the easiest thing a person can do after sleeping.
Drinking water? No, it's very hard.
I drink water all the time. Like I pass my kitchen, I drink a glass of water. Then I go again. I even wake up in the night to drink water.
Oh no, not me.
Okay, maybe I'm not specific for that, but if I wake up in the morning, I want to drink water.
Yeah.
But I never know how much I drank it because I just drink it from the glass.
Yeah, that's what like I'm keeping track of how much I'm drinking, just because like I need to drink at least 2.5 liters a day.
Yeah, I know that some people do.
Yeah. But then it's like it totally depends on the container, because like I have one of the SodaStream bottles which is 865 milliliters or 860 milliliters, right? And then there's this bottle which is 650 mils. So I'm like, okay, if I drink about 4 of these 650 mils, then I'm over the 2.5. But then drinking the 3 bottles of the SodaStream, it takes me fucking ages, and I don't know why, but this goes so much quicker. I'm like, oh, there's 4 to 3, but it's the container. I don't know. It's like magical. It changes the perception of I'm gonna drink water now, like more. I don't know. Anyway, yeah,
interesting. Maybe I just
can't
haven't
be the only
found the
one.
right container then.
Yeah, really though. It's about the container. It really is. Because I liked the bottle that you got me last year, the one with the straw. But then I can't see how much is like left, so that bothers me. Because I'm like,
because that's
how much have I
thermos
drank?
Thing.
Yeah. So I think in the summertime, if I had like a alcoholic beverage or something that's iced, then I would be like, yeah, this one's fucking perfect for that. But yeah, anyway.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no comments on how much I drink, because it's not much.
Stay healthy. Stay alive.
Yeah. Well, I'm fine, I think. Okay, any other updates? Pickle icicles, pickle sickles. No.
Pickle sickles.
Other things. Did we promise anything else?
Well, you were supposed to watch Princess Mononoke, but you have not done so.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
On your list.
I have not.
You have not?
I have not.
Well,
yeah.
What can you do?
It's now on my Netflix list, whatever that is called, my list. It's added there.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to hear about my case today?
Yes, I do. But I already know
it. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of funny because I picked this case. I don't even know where to start. So you know that I had some cases that took place in the 90s in Hungary, right? And I did mention every time that it's a very complicated time. A lot of things went down, and especially everything that's related to organized crime. It's super complex, and I always wanted to cover this, but it feels kind of overwhelming to start because there's really a lot going on. So I was like, I kept postponing it, and it's happening today. I will start properly today, and that means that this might have to be a series. I don't know if I will keep bringing cases from this era every time, but we're starting it more properly today. So, but then what happened is that I finally decided to do it because there was a news article that came out very recently that is related to, let's say, a few of the cases that took place in the 90s that are pretty relevant to current events as well. So I thought, okay, this is probably something I should cover. And then apparently Laura also found maybe not the same article, but anyway, the same story. And then you were thinking about covering it as well, right?
Yeah. At some point I was like either covering it in News Tangent, but then I was like, no, but I think it could be a full episode because history and like you said, the current political climate in the country. Mm-hmm. It's very, very relevant today, and going over the shittiness of that. So, and even in the news today, like all the stuff that Russia's planning and whatever for Hungary, and trying to sway some elections and shit. So it's very, very pertinent for today's political climate.
Yeah, very true. And I think it gives some nice kind of historical context to a lot of the things that are going on today. Maybe not like directly, but it can still be like a good intro to Hungarian politics in general.
Yeah, and especially since the elections are coming up next month in April too, so it's also quite timely now.
Yes, exactly. And actually, I wanted to say that I think and I hope that this episode comes out exactly on the election day.
Let me check. Yeah, so next episode, technically, if we do a News Tangent, would be this Sunday, the 29th of March. And then...
Oh, okay.
And then the 5th, 12th would be this episode if we do a News Tangent.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because 12th of April is when we have the elections in Hungary.
Yeah, great.
So that would be perfect timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though it's not directly, of course, related to the elections, but it is kind of, like the topic is very much related to it.
Yeah, I think that's why I found it even, like possibly, because like it popped up on some... I forget if it was in English or in Finnish, because like I just get both news stories in English and Finnish, so I don't remember whether it was Finnish. It might have been Finnish even, but anyway.
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't see it in Finnish media, but it might be. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So just kind of a little bit more intro, and I will give you first I will start with an intro about the era in general, but basically the whole political and anyway, just the scene in general in the 90s in Hungary, it's very complicated. There's a widespread network of criminal underworld that is pretty much fully entangled with actual legitimate businesses and police and political figures. So it's very messy. And so, like I said, this was one of the reasons why I kept postponing talking about these cases, because there's a lot of cases, a lot of crime happening, and a lot of important figures, and it's pretty much impossible to cover everything in one episode. So I decided to do it so that in this episode I will focus on one person mostly, who is a Slovakian hitman called Jozef Roháč, and he's going to be kind of the central figure of the events that I wanted to cover. So I also will talk about his life, early crimes, some of his crimes in Hungary, but not all, because there are actually quite many that would require their own episodes, because there are other very prominent figures who were involved in those crimes, very long trials, investigation, everything. So some of those will need to be discussed separately, but I will just give you an intro to some of those. And then the ones that I will focus on today have this distinct political flavor. So, I will tell you more about that in a bit. And then also just maybe to some of the listeners, probably not everyone knows what is going on in Hungarian politics today. And I will not go into a lot of detail, but what you should know is that the current, the party that is leading the country and has been leading the country in the past 16 years is a party named Fidesz, and their leader is Viktor Orbán. So I would say this is pretty common knowledge, but maybe not everyone knows. And then so basically this case will also give you some context about the early days of this party and how they first came to power. So I hope that's going to be quite interesting. And then maybe what I would want to mention here is that current regime has been quite problematic in a lot of ways. A lot of corruption in Hungary, pretty much like Russia-like system in general in terms of the media and the government.
And I mean, I think they're also weakening the EU and all this stuff too, because they have the ties with Russia, and that's a huge thing, for instance. So,
yes,
they're basically sabotaging in the name of Russia. So,
yeah. Of course, their narrative is different, very, very different. I don't even want to go into that because that would lead us to like an hours-long conversation. But yes, problematic on many levels. And why the elections are interesting this year, particularly today, when people might be listening to the episode, is because this might be the first time in 16 years when there's a real chance of someone else winning the elections. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. I don't know. I can't imagine anything.
Yeah.
So, so this current like leading opposition party, the TISA party, has been active in the past 2 years. They have been kind of a surprise. Like they emerged a little bit surprisingly. The leader of this party, Péter Magyar, is originally become known as the ex-husband of the former Minister of Justice, who was involved in some interesting cases that I also shouldn't go into because it is complicated. But then he had this famous interview. He used to be part of Fidesz and had some roles, not political roles, but other kinds of roles tied to the party. And then he got fed up, and then he came out with a lot of, accusations. So basically came from that side, and then eventually ended up establishing a party. And now they are the biggest. They have quite a good chance of winning these elections, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, fingers crossed, because Orban needs to, and Fidesz needs to lose. That's my stance.
They need to go.
They need to go. They need to go. But I mean, not that much can happen anyway. Even if the TISA party did like win, they still have to deal with a lot of opposition, like parties as well within coalitions and all this other shit. So
yeah, I mean, mostly because all the other parties are just like
pawns of Fidesz.
I'm not saying non-existent, or not necessarily, but there are still parties that are not necessarily tied to Fidesz, but their support is just minimal, like almost no one. So basically, there are two bigger parties now, and there are a few other players, but nothing hugely relevant. Yeah. Okay, so for this story, the sources that I used was, a bunch of different news articles online, but one of the most kind of important ones that I wanted to highlight is this very recent article where this like most recent news came out by a news outlet called Átlátszó, which is, according to their own definition, is the first Hungarian investigative journalism nonprofit and the watchdog NGO to promote transparency, accountability, and the freedom of information in Hungary. It's a great, great site, a lot of great investigative articles that come from Átlátszó. The name literally means transparent or see-through. So they have this very detailed article that I used for this. And then I also used a book by investigative journalist András Dezső. He has a very awesome book series about basically organized crime in Hungary since the 80s to today. So he has one of I think it's the third book in the series that's, where these events are also covered. It's here. Yes. Nice book. So that's one of the other important sources. Okay. So I'll start by kind of setting the scene for you, how Hungary in the 1990s looked like. You might remember from some of the previous cases that I brought, I think I mentioned this several times, that there was a regime change in 1989. So that's when the communist era ended in Hungary. And then in 1990, they had the first democratic elections. So after this regime change, Hungary basically shifts from this controlled socialist system into a free market economy, which sounds great, but of course everything because of this changed pretty fast. And even though it was a free market economy, the rules didn't really exist to have it, like have all of this businesses and whatever exist in a very controlled and nice and legal way. So it was very messy. State assets were privatized really quickly. And so it meant that there was huge amounts of money and opportunity to be claimed overnight. And also importantly, different institutions like the police, courts, regulators were still adapting to this new system. So they were kind of just generally not equipped, but also they were lacking funding to handle complex financial crime and any sort of organized criminal activities. Okay, so this is where we start from in 1990. Now, about the political scene, I wanted to tell you kind of what were the main parties in this era. Of course, the political scene was also changing quite a lot because the communist era ended, so there could actually be real parties and there was an election. So in 1990, the most supported party, which was governing the country between 90 and 94, was a party called MDF, Magyar Demokrata Fórum, meaning Hungarian Democratic Forum, which was a central-right party. So they formed a government. There was another quite popular party. They were left liberal, SDS. This was the English translation of their name is Alliance of Free Democrats. And then an emerging, energetic, full of young people, new party was Fidesz, which is also very well known today. Fidesz was formed in 1988 under the name of Alliance of Young Democrats, Fiatal Demokraták Szövetsége. So this is an acronym that Fidesz comes from. And they were originally a central-left liberal activist movement that opposed the ruling of the communist regime. They registered as a political party in 1990, of course, makes sense. And Orbán was already the leader of the party back then. There were also other important figures, but basically he was like pretty much the whole time ever since has been the leader.
And he was actually young back then. So yeah.
He was actually young back then. It's kind of
idealistic.
It's kind of a funny name now.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like all these guys are fucking old now. Like he was probably 20 something, or I don't know, I'm guessing 20, 30 tops, and then that was 30 years ago.
20s, yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, it's funny because nowadays they're not young and not Democrats.
No, no, nothing describes them in that. The Fiatal, like whatever, like oh god, nothing.
Yeah, yeah. So, but then back then, basically, Fidesz acted as kind of the younger version of the other party that I mentioned before them, SDS, which was the Alliance of Free Democrats. Similar vibes, and they were becoming popular, but then not yet taken so seriously because they were, mostly young people. So this is how they started in 1990. And another party that's relevant to mention here is MSP, Magyar Szocialista Párt, which is the Hungarian Socialist Party. They were actually a social democratic party. They were basically the successor of the previous Communist Party. So everyone hated them in 1990. They were kind of the scapegoat party back then.
No. But I'm like, that sounds good nowadays, like social democracy. Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, they later formed governments, so they were not like hated forever later on.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
at least
coming straight out of a socialist, society. Yeah, makes sense.
So important about Fidesz is that by 1993, they become actually pretty popular. They have about, their support was about like 40% by 93, so not election year yet, because the next elections happened in 94. But then they have some of their first scandals going around. I think in 93, there's this famous controversial party headquarter scandal where I think different parties got basically to use as their headquarters some buildings in Budapest. And what Fidesz did is that they basically ended up selling theirs, and then from the money, they used that money to buy businesses to start establishing their influence, like economical influence and whatnot. So that was not a move that people liked. And then at the same time, Orbán, but like the party in general, decided to change the direction of the party as well, from the original left liberal direction to more like a right-leaning, central right-leaning direction. So their support declined from 40-ish% to 6%. And then by the time we get to the elections in 1994, they barely make it to the parliament, barely.
Wow.
But it's so random. Like you have a party, you have an like idea how the society would be, and then you're like, actually, no, I'll do the opposite thing.
But I mean,
in Finland, you just change the party. You're like, actually, I don't want to do this. I'll go to the other party that's more. But of course, it's different because here the democracy didn't start yesterday.
But I also think that
about the 90s.
But they could have gone to the other centrist right party. But of course, that kind of, I don't know, I think it kind of gives you an idea of what the party would eventually be like, because they could have just, shifted over, joined this other party. But no, they want some power. They want their own shit, basically. Even though if they're conceptually the same kind of party, they're not willing to sacrifice the power that they would get if they had their own party in power. So, yeah.
I mean, I think generally political parties work like that. Like you have your ideas and you want to have your party.
Yeah. But I don't know.
But it kind of shows that even early on, sure, I'm sure they had values, but they were very much interested in kind of how they can gain influence, and had some interesting moves already back then. So by 94 they made it to the parliament, but just barely, with very low support. And actually in 94 the Social Democratic Party ended up winning the elections, so they formed the government then. Okay, another important piece of the puzzle from the 90s is that, which I already referred to, is that organized crime started to explode in the 90s in Hungary. There are basically these organized crime groups that were operating kind of openly. There was a lot of legal, gray zones everywhere. And so this like opportunistic mindset and very kind of weak oversight was created the perfect conditions for crime in the country. So there was a lot of crime going on. There were a lot of also like international criminal groups active in the country, from Slovakia, from the Balkans, so like Serbia or Yugoslavia back then. You might remember my story about Marinko Magda, who was the hitman from Yugoslavia. He was operating mostly in the southern part of Hungary. So a lot of groups being active in Hungary, and they were, of course, kind of competing violently with each other for territory, influence, resources. One of the biggest businesses in Hungary in the 90s was something I mentioned to Laura briefly over the weekend. It's the term in Hungarian for it is olajszőkítés, which literally translated would mean oil blonding, but I think the term that is used in English is oil bleaching or oil whitening.
Yeah.
So the actual operation was that officially pretty cheap heating oil, which was, low tax, didn't cost a lot. It was chemically modified to make it unusable for car engines. And so the business was illegally reverting this back to a diesel form, so it could be sold at full price as diesel for car engines. So this oil that was not, they were kind of modifying it back to this form so it could be sold for a much higher price.
This is so confusing, but maybe we don't need to go deep into this. I don't understand why it was originally chemically changed to be less valuable oil.
Because then it was used for, exactly so that it wouldn't be used in car engines as car fuel. Because this oil that was modified, it was exactly to make it used for heating.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sold for cheap. And then the car fuel was like a different kind of oil, which was, suitable for the engines, but it cost more.
It's the same thing now. Like we have diesel versus gas versus like the MOPO, like type of gas. And then each of those have different grades and each are different expenses, like, or different price points for each of those brackets, or different octane or whatever also. Yeah. So
yeah. Don't ask me about the actual chemical process, but basically
not going too deep into this.
Yeah, but so people who were operating in this business, they figured out that it can be this cheap heating oil can be modified so that it becomes suitable for car fuel, and they can sell it for a much higher price.
Smart.
Yeah.
So this led to huge profits for these groups, and of course a massive tax loss for the state.
Mm-hmm.
And this was not like a small scale niche scam. This was like industrial level fraud, like very like unimaginable level fraud in the whole country. Yeah. So interestingly, and that's kind of all I'm going to say about the oil bleaching, but just so you know, this was like a very relevant thing going on in Hungary, and a lot of criminals, but like also businessmen, which was many times the same thing, or the boundaries were not super clear. Political figures allegedly were involved and had different roles in this whole business. And there's one name that comes up, and I think he is a guy who needs to be covered in a separate episode. Tamás Portik, who is a Hungarian businessman who was kind of a key figure in the country's organized crime in general, and very massively involved in this oil bleaching operation as well. And then later he was convicted for multiple high-profile murders or being involved in those crimes. But I'll just mention his name here, Tamás Portik. I'm gonna talk about him another time. Okay, now I will go on and talk about the key figure today, Jozef Roháč. Before I do that, do you have any other questions, comments about, 90s in Hungary, oil bleaching, political figures? No?
No, pretty straightforward.
Super clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this guy, Jozef, he was a famous hitman / terrorist / high-profile criminal, well-known guy, very active, not just in the 90s, also in the 2000s. I tried to look into his early life. There's not a lot about his childhood, but what I found in some sources is that, well, first of all, he was born in 1956 in Czechoslovakia, in the town of Levice, or the Hungarian name of this town would be Leva. And this town is part of current-day Slovakia. So he's a Slovak citizen. And what I found about his childhood is probably unsurprising, that apparently he lived in a sort of a violent environment. Her father might have been an alcoholic, like just, standard type of childhood. I didn't find any very special details beyond this, but that's what we know. He was described as a very intelligent person, and he was also artistically inclined. He wrote some poetry. He showed interest in art as a teenager or as a young person, but he also displayed strong tendencies towards aggression and risk-taking, which will show in the rest of the story. Later accounts from people who knew him, we know that they report that he had kind of has a charismatic personality. He could make a positive impression on people. He appeared to be quite helpful and modest and kind of eager to be accepted. So it was kind of described as a nice, intelligent guy by some people.
Maybe not his victims, but
his probably not. But I mean, of course, I'm saying this kind of as a contrast to a lot of his acts, because I think it's kind of interesting to know that otherwise, and this happens often, but that he is not necessarily always described as a violent person, but that he has this other interesting side.
Yeah, and I mean, like looking at him, like photos. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Petra. Yeah. Oh, you can go.
No, I was just going to say that most of people are not just like one aspect. They're different phases.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I found it interesting that he was into poetry and stuff like that. I put his name in the chat if you want to Google his face.
Yeah, because I was like, pictures of him, like he doesn't seem like that, scary of a guy. Like he seems like you blend in. Like he could either be like, jovial. You can imagine the I guess the spectrum of personality that he has. Indeed, like he doesn't seem like and then there's even some photo like with different hairstyles and stuff. It's like, yeah, I guess he could also blend in quite easily as well, which is also scary. But then it also kind of makes me laugh because he kind of looks like a Hitman from the video game series a little bit too. So
true, it does. Yeah. It really does.
Yeah.
Who knows if he's an inspiration?
Maybe.
Could be. So overall, his criminal career started with small things like thefts and stuff like that, like petty things. And then it escalated into more serious crimes. The first notable crime, which I'm just going to mention this because it's the first one that is important if we look at his career, but he has so many things and I'm not going to mention all of them. But the first larger scale, or not larger scale, but very significant crime that he commits was in 1985. He was 29 years old then. And apparently he had just finished military service. And of course, at the time, you couldn't just, go to the West. But he wanted to go to Austria. He wanted to actually escape to Austria. And I think you could go and visit if you requested a passport. And this was granted. But then he did request a passport. But what I read is that he was kind of bragging about not planning to return. So they denied his request and he didn't get a passport. So what do you do in this case? So what he decided to do was that him and an accomplice, another guy, they managed to steal a gun from some security person. And then they used this gun to kidnap the then Deputy Minister of Health on the street from his limousine. They kind of stopped his car, grabbed the guy from the limousine, put him in their own car on gunpoint. And then they went to the Austrian border, and the plan was that they will negotiate the crossing of the border to escape the country with this kidnapping.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were they successful?
Point, I feel that they wouldn't be very welcomed to the next country either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. They somehow thought this might be successful. I think they accidentally fired the gun. No one was injured. I think it went through this deputy minister's shoe or something. But it was not successful. They were at the border. They tried to negotiate, but there were like snipers and everything. So they just ended up giving up, and they were arrested. So after this, Roháč was sentenced to 13 years in prison for terrorism. He was, claimed, or he was named as a terrorist after this. So he went to prison, and then he kind of portrayed himself as a political prisoner throughout the years. He first went to the Ilava prison, and then there was a lot going on with this guy's life. But basically in 86, him and some other people in the prison planned a prison escape. So they somehow cut through the bars and created this rope from sheets. And Roháč was the first person to climb down on the rope, but he didn't wait for the other people. He just kind of ran away, so that alerted the guards. So all the other people were captured, but he managed to escape. That was kind of an asshole move.
Yeah, dick move.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he seems to like escaping. It's like a reoccurring theme in his life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he successfully escaped, but then eventually he was recaptured. He was taken to another prison, the Leopoldov prison, where the guards there were really harsh with him as a punishment for their colleagues' demotion after he escaped from the other prison. They were beating him up, and he was in isolation, a lot of physical abuse, whatnot, which had an impact on his personality. But interestingly, he found Buddhism in prison due to this. And he claimed later that this helped him endure the harsh conditions and kind of avoid breaking down psychologically. So he became a Buddhist, which is very interesting.
A Buddhist hitman.
Everything that happens later. Yeah.
A Buddhist hitman. Very interesting indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah,
sure.
Just a very weird region and time and everything to be a Buddhist.
Yes. Yeah. So he was in prison for a few more years until there was a turning point in 98, which didn't only mark the regime change in Hungary, but it was also the collapse of the communist regime in Czechoslovakia, where there was a big political transformation. It's known as the Velvet Revolution that led to a lot of changes, including a major amnesty declared by the president, Václav Havel, who, for some reason, decided to give amnesty to like 23 or 4,000 prisoners out of the 30,000 altogether.
Wow.
They just let them go.
Wow.
Maybe they were like, it's too much to try to filter who were like political prisoners and who were actual criminals. So like, whatever, just everyone, go. Let's see.
Yeah.
Like, probably the actual criminals, we'll do some actual crime afterwards. So we'll just catch them later.
Yeah, but interesting move nevertheless.
Yeah.
A bit dangerous, risk-taking.
Yeah, but not everyone was freed. So some serious offenders were not given amnesty at this point. And actually, Roháč was one of them. So he stayed in prison for a while. He was not let go. His sentence was reduced, but he stayed in prison. But then he ended up, they took him to another prison. They somehow sneaked out a letter. I don't know. But basically his family and some other, I think, opposition, like politicians in the opposition at the time, advocated for him and sent a letter to the president. And then he was granted personal amnesty in 1990. So he was also let out eventually, but not in the first wave. So a few years after this, after he got out of prison, he tried to take regular jobs and be, not a criminal. But then by 1992, some sources mentioned that he was already involved in some criminal activities again. You might be wondering how he got to Hungary.
Yes, like now is your chance to go to West.
Yeah.
The borders are free. Go.
Yeah, he needed work and money, and he got to know some Hungarians in Slovakia. First, he was. I will maybe just like here mention that he committed a lot of crime in Slovakia as well in the 90s after he was let out. So he was involved in the assassination of several influential kind of local mafia bosses and such that took place in Slovakia. So, but I'm not going to be covering these because there's really quite many of these. Might be interesting to look into later. There's some speculation that he might have connections to intelligence services, but we don't know. That's just speculation. But then how he got into Hungary or why he ended up moving there or at least starting to be active there, he befriended a Hungarian guy who was involved in these organized crime circles in Levice. And this person was involved in this oil bleaching operation, working with some of those figures, like influential figures that I mentioned. And so he was first recruited to carry out just like a robbery of some guy that this other guy didn't like, which was unsuccessful. But then he basically became known as a reliable person. And then he was recruited to do other work, like procure weapons from Slovakia. This was firearms and explosives. And then he was also able to recruit other people for security and enforcement type of work that was needed in Hungary in those circles. And then he did things like armed protection in business meetings and things like that. So he became kind of a well-known, reliable figures in Hungarian organized crime through these jobs that he ended up doing. And then he also became well-known as a specialist in some types of crimes, and he was trusted with quite many high-risk operations. He was known for his knowledge about explosives and different precision attacks. He was good with car bombs and explosive bombs in general.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so he is involved in many cases in Hungary as well, some of which I will just kind of list key details about a few of these, but I'm not gonna go into detail today because I want to cover some of them later in separate episodes. But there's a series of crimes that are pretty important to at least mention also here. In 1996, there is an assassination of a man named Tamás Prisztás in Budapest. He was a businessman who was shot at close range during daytime. This was related to underworld rivalries. What we know today is that this murder was committed by Roháč. Then in June 1997, there was an attempted bombing of another person influential at the time named Zoltán Seres. A bomb was planted under his car, but this bomb failed to explode. This event is important because they found some forensic evidence on the bomb that was placed under the car, which then led to Roháč. Basically, I think it was fingerprints or maybe even DNA. It might have been DNA already.
What an amateur move, yo. Tisk, tisk, tisk.
I mean, the bomb didn't detonate. Otherwise, I guess it would have been.
But I don't know, like sometimes,
fine.
Like, wasn't it even in... I'm trying to think of like which case. Was it the Unabomber? Wasn't there some type of stuff that's found? Like there was like one case where you can actually get some type of fingerprints or some type of material, or like, hey, there's this certain thing, especially if it's a homemade bomb, to compare that to like material, like fragments or whatever, and to kind of trace it back to somebody. So I don't know. if a bomb would necessarily, like, okay, DNA, sure, with heat and whatnot probably destroys it, but with fingerprints, I don't know. I feel like that would survive, especially if it was on some type of surface like metal or whatever. Who knows?
Well, I guess it depends if there are any pieces that are big enough to, contain any good sized fingerprint. I think it was DNA in this case. I didn't write it down to this part of the notes. It might come up later.
Yeah.
Okay. Then in 98, February 98, this is one of the very famous cases that I think I'm going to cover later in a separate episode. There's another assassination of media mogul at the time, János Fenyő, who was shot dead in his car at a traffic light. And we think now that this was like basically the hitman who committed the murder was Roháč.
But how do they know
after this in 98? There's a lot going.
How do they know that he's the one? Did he confess to these, or they're like he was in the
So vicinity? For a long time they don't know.
Okay.
For a long time they don't know. I will tell you what kind of happens in the following years. But at this time, everyone just knows that people are getting murdered on the street. We don't know who's doing it. There are some eyewitnesses of seeing people, leaving from the scene, but no, but there's not. I think there are different suspects, but no one actually knows that it's this guy.
Okay.
So this last one was in 1998, and then there's a lot happening in 1998. Also note that this is election year. So 94 was the previous one, and 98 is the next parliamentary elections. So after this, and this is what I will talk about in more detail, but just for the timeline, I will just mention that there's a series of political bombings that happen in the spring and summer of 98. And then another high-profile case that maybe overshadows these political bombings a little bit that happens afterwards in July 2nd, 98. The case is known as Aranykéz street bombing. Aranykéz means golden hand. It's the name of a street. There was a car bomb that was placed, I think, under the car of another key underworld figure who was also potentially an informant, Tamás Boros. And this case is important because this is the first bombing where people die. So, civilians die. So there are 4 people dead and 20 plus civilians injured. So this is a big case. Happens in the same year. So all of these bombings and murders are happening in 98. Before we got to the latest updates about specifically the political bombings, I'll tell you what happened to Roháč after this. So he was only first arrested in 2008 on charges of an attempted assassination of businessman Zoltán Seres. So this was the case that happened in June 97. Mm-hmm. And he finished serving his sentence in October 2010. So my notes here say that his fingerprints were found on the device that was removed from the bottom of the car because the bomb, failed to go off. So they could find his fingerprints there, but the police could not secure enough evidence for the prosecutor to push for to convince the court that he was preparing to execute this person.
Okay.
Which would, of course, carry a much higher sentence.
That seems a bit odd.
So in the end, he was only...
So you mean that the other option would be that he just put a bomb there and was going to detonate it when he was not in the car? Kind of like just...
I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know if the issue was that they couldn't convince them that even though his fingerprint was there, he placed the bomb there.
Maybe he was just a bomb builder selling
I guess
to other people
in
the cars.
But couldn't they also basically say that, hey, this bomb wouldn't have gone off, it was faulty, so then therefore it was probably a fluke? And then it just seems a bit... the defense was probably fucking great. The lawyer was probably like, yeah, we could totally get you off.
You know how
it didn't
trials
go to court, right? It wasn't prosecuted, was that?
It was prosecuted on a lesser charge.
So
right?
Yes. So he was sentenced only to 2 years in prison.
Yeah.
And he was released on October 26, 2010.
Okay.
It's all
but
semantics.
Not for long.
It feels like it's semantics. I don't know, like attempted murder versus like kind of planning murder or something. You know, like it's very Anyway, okay. Yeah.
Or planning to break one's car.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Anyway, he is in prison now. But so he was released then in 2010, and after he was released, a DNA sample that was taken back in 2008 was finally matched to. So this is where the DNA came from that I remembered. So if this DNA sample was finally matched to samples that were left behind by the suspected assassin of the media mogul guy that I mentioned, János Fenyő, in his assassination in 1998. So this was now enough evidence to prosecute him for murder in this other case. So not the failed bombing, but the murder or assassination of
Okay. One other question. I'm just trying to imagine, like, how the fuck would you leave DNA because you were shot in a traffic stop, basically, right? If this is the same guy, I think. So, like, how are you leaving your DNA in a fucking, like, okay.
I don't know.
Like an amateur.
That's why this is, and that... Yeah, and that is a case that's very complex, and it involves a lot of interesting other figures. So I'm going to bring that as a separate episode.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good, yeah.
But just so you know, so they basically, then in April 2011, because he went back to Slovakia, he was extradited to Hungary from Slovakia, and then trial began, took years, but then in March 2016, the Hungarian court in Budapest sentenced him to life imprisonment for his crimes in Hungary, bombing, murders. I think so. There were several things that were added. And he is eligible for conditional release after serving a minimum of 30 years. So he is currently in prison now for some of the things that he committed.
Okay.
Seems fair.
Yeah.
In prison.
Yeah.
Okay, but what came out in the news recently? Yeah. So I told you that in 1998, that's the entire point of this story today, is that there were these party headquarter bombings that took place in 1998, series of bombings during election season. The targets of the bombings, I will list them in more detail, but generally political offices and politicians' homes. And the timeline is between March and June. There were multiple of these bombings that took place. And why these kind of stood out between the other bombings and the other murders that took place in the same year is that there were no personal injuries in any of the cases. And also they were very kind of clearly political in nature. The other ones were about kind of underworld figures or influential businessmen, but these were very targeted to politicians. The sequence began on March 12th, 1998. This was first a failed attempt to bomb the headquarters of the Independent Smallholders, Agrarian Workers and Civic Party. Független Kisgazdapárt. This was a bomb was placed there. It didn't go off, so that was a failed attempt. Shortly after that, 4 days later, on March 16, a device exploded at the home of Jozef Roháč, who was the same party's leader. So they were in the opposition then. No one was injured. I think he was not home. Very lucky. Then on May 1st, another bomb detonated at the apartment of József Szájer, who was a leading figure in Fidesz. There's so much about that guy more recently, which I'm not even going to mention, but a lot of very interesting politicians. So, so there was a bomb in his apartment. I think he was not at home. I don't know, but he was not injured. No one was injured.
Conveniently nowhere to be found in any of these places that bombs are magically appearing. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So this was May 1st.
Unluckiest hitman or something. But yeah, sorry. I think there's a lag that I keep like talking over
exactly,
you. But yeah. Yeah, but he's probably
I think sometimes there is.
Yeah, they're either the unluckiest hitman or these people all have like they're fucking super lucky. I don't know.
Someone's luck.
Very interesting. I know. Okay, so this was May 1st, and then the elections come, which took place in May. And interestingly, back then, and for a while afterwards, Hungarian elections had 2 rounds. So there was 1 round, and then we found out who got the most votes. And then there was a second round where people went back to vote again. In between, some of the parties could figure out if they want to form coalitions and then, go and be like try again in the next round already in this coalition format. Overall, it was a pretty good system, but then Fidesz later was like, we don't need this anymore. So we don't have that anymore, but it used to be like that for a while. So Fidesz wins the elections, but just barely, in an interesting way, because they don't win the first round. So the first round was that the party that got the most votes was, I think, the Social Democratic Party, and then Fidesz was a few percentage points behind. But then by the second round, they formed this kind of weird coalition of parties that wouldn't necessarily want to maybe work together otherwise, but they formed this monster coalition, or I don't know. And then anyway, they ended up winning the second round like that. So this is when the first Fidesz and Orbán government starts in 1998. In 1998 to 2002 is when they first come to power.
Something had happened between the 94 and the 98 election, because didn't you say that in the 94 election they had like super minimal support?
Yeah, so they were first... Right? They were first very popular and then not that popular, but then over the years they gained popularity again. But they still didn't win the first round here, so they could only win because, they came up with some interesting strategies. But anyway, they ended up winning, just barely. So it was an interesting parliament. Anyway, after this, still on June 15th, there was another bombing. Another explosive device was set off at the Fidesz headquarters, and it was targeted to one of the other leading politician, János Áder's office, but he was luckily not in the office, so no one was hurt.
No way.
Yeah. So even though, the pattern was kind of escalating, no injuries, and that kind of raised some suspicion in people already back then. There was an investigation, of course, like police was looking into these cases. They couldn't identify the perpetrators. And then over the years, these cases actually expires and no one was prosecuted for the bombings. But they still remain controversial over the years. There were some, competing interpretations of what might have happened. And, some people think that they were intended to destabilize the country or to somehow influence the election outcome. Then others thought that this might be kind of self-sabotaging, or this basically that what a lot of people suspected then was that Fidesz was actually involved in organizing these fake attacks against themselves to evoke sympathy in the voters towards themselves, and then also to kind of show how unstable the current system is. That was one of the narratives that maybe this could have happened. So what was in the news now just a few days ago when we record this, or a little bit over a week ago, is that Roháč, who I just talk to you about extensively, who's right now in prison. Through his lawyer, he admitted to media that he personally carried out 3 of these attacks in 1998. He says that the first one, so the one that happened in this other party is not Fidesz, but the other party's headquarters, it was not his work, and that was actually a failed bombing, so it was kind of weird. It was carried out by some other person, and what he claims now is that he was hired later to carry out the rest of the bombings. So he says that he carried out the one in Tordján and Szájer's homes, as well as the explosion at the Fidesz headquarters. He also claims that he was not involved in the planning, but he acted as the executor, which was kind of what he did before as well. So that's, believable. He obtained the explosives, he assembled the devices, and also carried out the detonations. And then the most interesting part of his claim, his recent claims, is that he was instructed to carry out the attacks in the interest of Fidesz. At the same time, he emphasized that he had no kind of direct connections to the party or did not know any of the politicians personally, he didn't know them. But according to him, this information came from the people who gave him the job to carry out the bombings, that this was in the interest of Fidesz. He claims this now. Of course, there's not other direct evidence.
I mean, false flag attempts of I don't know, these false flag attacks aren't really, I feel like they're not out of the realm of possibility with Fidesz. And also I'm just going to throw this out there. It would also not be against the Trump administration, I think, to also have a false flag attack, now that the Iran stuff is going on, to kind of justify means of war. I'm just going to say that, this type of thing, it's very common, I believe, when people are losing their grip or whatever, and they have no fucking scruples like the Trump administration. But yeah, that's just
which is why I also wouldn't be surprised if this would happen nowadays in Hungary, and they would be blaming Ukraine.
Yeah. Actually,
because that's one of the interesting narratives going on nowadays in Hungary.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yep.
So he also states in his recent claims that he was told to ensure that no one would be harmed in these attacks. And, this is consistent with what we then saw happening. He also claims that before detonating the bomb at the Fidesz headquarters, he had to call in to check if Áder, the guy whose office was targeted, to make sure that he's not present in the office. And then he only triggered the explosion after he was not there. Again, he is claiming this now. There's no other evidence. But other people who were in the same circles have kind of alluded to this before. So this is not kind of the first time that this comes up. Yeah. So based on these few people's accounts, the goal was to influence politics, to undermine the current left-wing government at the time, and then help the then opposition come to power. But, this is largely based on personal testimonies, basically no physical evidence that we know of at this point. You might be wondering why the bombings continued after Fidesz won the elections. Roháč also has an explanation to this. He says that the final attack was actually meant to deflect suspicion from Fidesz by countering, rumors that these incidents were self-inflicted in a way. Yeah. So because this was already in the narrative, then they wanted to have another attack after they already won, just to seem less suspicious. Yeah. But then, so even though there was investigation at the time, there was so much going on. So there were these other cases. There was the assassination of János Fenyő, which was also done by Roháč. And then right after this, the Aranykész street bombing happened where civilians died. So the kind of attention was not really focused on these political bombings that much anymore, because this was a very tumultuous year. And there was not a lot of evidence. There was no, personal injuries. So it just kind of like died, and no one really cared about it anymore. Up until now, I guess, or this was like, rumors were circulating, but now Roháč is coming out and saying that, well, it was me and this was the reason. Another thing that he says is that he's writing a book.
Do you not have a law in
he will
Hungary?
Name who the person.
Can I just interject here? Do you not have a law in Hungary where like you can't profit off of your crimes? Like in the States, like you can't profit from, like you say you murdered somebody, you can't have like a tell-all or write a book or Netflix series, and you can't get like money from that, basically.
I would guess there is, but I don't know. I don't know for sure.
I've never heard of that kind of law.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense though, because like if you think about it, the money, that proceeds should either go to the family, because there's, usually going to be some type of civil lawsuit or something like loss of life or, whatever, what have you, or some type of losses that they need to pay. And then if they don't have any means to pay it, then the proceeds should either go to the family of the victim. So, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I should know this, and it rings a bell, but I don't know if it's something that I heard in as a law in Hungary or just from the US or other cases. So I don't know for sure, but he's anyways writing this book, and he said that he will name the person who commissioned the attacks in the book.
Oh shit! So if he ends up dead or hung in his cell with some sheets, even though he's not suicidal, then we'll know that something's up, right?
Yeah.
Epstein
but I don't know, because it was such a long time ago.
Yeah.
At this point, Fidesz has been doing so much that people are probably like, just another regular day.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, yeah.
Interestingly, though, the bombings and the assassinations, just like somehow they happened to stop after 98 when Fidesz was already in power. Maybe it's because they were so great and they just, order, like they just solved all the issues and everything was in order after that. Or maybe there were other reasons. We don't know. But they stopped after 98.
Yeah. I mean, I did bring this up over the weekend because they also made a really good point. Maybe it was in the article or some comments when I was reading it on Reddit or something. But they were just saying that Fidesz never came out and said that, hey, it was the opposition, that like, oh, these bombings, it's definitely the opposition or whatever. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they didn't. Normally, I think nowadays they would be coming out and saying it's Ukraine that did this, or it's US or whoever the fuck did this particularly. So I think they were more subtle with their political.
It was more
if
subtle,
it was indeed them. Yeah, it was more subtle and like more tactful, I think, with this type of move, like everyone can put the points together. But nowadays it's like they need to kind of guide the narrative a bit more, because it's so outlandish that Ukraine would actually attack or do something like that.
For sure.
Like they need to like guide people's hands. For sure.
And nowadays
it's so stupid. Yeah.
Exactly. And nowadays what sometimes happens is that there's not even, like nothing even happens, and that they just make up a fake story and it's all over the media, and because they own all the, anyway, not all the media outlets, but the ones that reach most people the easiest, they do. So it's not, there doesn't always need to be like something concrete happening. They can make things up.
And now you can make just anything with AI, like a video of something happening.
Just like their commercials.
Back in the days, you actually needed to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of insane nowadays. But so I just thought that, first of all, this is like recent news, and it's, so I wanted to cover it. But also I think it maybe gives an interesting intro to early days of Fidesz, like some of the things that happened around them back then. Then they ended up governing the country for 4 years, and then the next 2 elections they lost, but then they won again. And it's anyway, still pretty complicated stuff that I'm not going to go into today. but between 2010 and now, they have been leading the country again. So, yeah.
They're not going to lead now after this election. We're calling it.
I don't know.
Knock on wood.
I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. I can't imagine anything at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this also...
I just reading like that the margins are so small, but I want to travel to Hungary. I don't want to support Orban and his shittiness. Okay. Yeah, that's my comment.
Yeah, I know. A lot of the things are owned by their friends, and it's not going to change overnight anyway. But let's hope for the best.
Yeah.
But I also hope that this gave you kind of a good intro to... I mean, I have started giving an intro before, but a little bit more proper intro to the 90s in Hungary, and some mentions of some of the other interesting cases that happened there that I will cover in detail in separate episodes. But this was already quite long for today.
But it was interesting. So thanks for bringing this case. Episode. Yeah. Very timely, super timely.
Yes. And if anyone is listening to this on Sunday when the elections are happening, then, fingers crossed, and hope you can chill out and not stress about it too much.
Yeah. Okay. Thinking positive for Hungary. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks again. So yeah, I guess that's it. I think I'll be going next time.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I might bring technically Norwegian Danish case or Finnish. I'm not sure. So we'll see. And then, but you can follow us on Instagram at Translation Murder Podcast. You can see some photos from or images that we mention people, in the episodes. And you can send us an email at translationmurderpodcast@gmail.com. And they should not send what, Petra?
Dick pics.
Yeah, no dick pics. Yep, we have a folder for dick pics. No, I'm joking. We don't, actually. We've never gotten a dick pic, so that's good.
I haven't looked at the emaemails in a long time, so I wouldn't know.
Maybe we should have a folder and always check that it is empty.
Well, I check pretty much every day. We don't have any dick pics, so we're good. We're dick free.
Okay.
Dick free.
Okay, great.
And hopefully my friend Marina has her podcast muted when I say dick free, because that was quite funny. We had anyway, I guess she didn't have the podcast quieted when we were saying save the penis or whatever, when we were talking about circumcision last time.
Oh wait, it wasn't. Oh no.
What do you mean?
Not
quieted?
Safe for work.
Like no, don't listen to this podcast without headphones.
Yeah.
Ever. Except
you never know.
Person sure that no one is in the same room.
Yeah, shout out to her. So anyway. But so you can also watch us on YouTube with Translation Murder Podcast. So okay, thank you. Hei paralla.
Bye.
Bye.